Alright everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and out here on the bench, what you see is my newest worm bin on the bottom there. It's a 12-day-old system with red wigglers, the red wigglers that used to live in the outdoor worm bag version 6.0. And they just got moved in here 12 days ago. The material that they used to occupy is in the bin above. Originally it was in the grow bag, the outdoor worm bag, and it stayed in there for some time, just until we wanted to get the migration of the worms started in a rigid container. And even though we're pretty sure that the majority of the worms have evacuated the material as part of the horizontal migration that we did, we assumed that there would still be a few stragglers, and that's the reason for the little bait box that we set up for them. We figured, there always exists that possibility that we did not round them all up, and I even made a point to not try to go crazy, expecting that the migration is going to account for 100% evacuation of the castings. I knew there'd be stragglers, so here's the first couple, 1, 2, 3, that I found resting out here on the surface in this slightly damp material. I just spotted another one here. And here's another. The material out here on the surface over the past 12 days has dried out nicely. And something I was pretty diligent in doing in my last migration, well, more specifically, the baiting that I did at the end of the last migration, or even the migration itself, I was very diligent about aerating the material, making sure that there's good airflow, allowing the material to get nice and dry, with the hopes that worms, sensing the lack of moisture there, they would get mobilized and start seeking out something a little bit more comfortable. And that was the whole idea of what we created here in the form of the bait box. Nicely dampened bedding, even a few morsels of yummy food in there for them. So I guess I was trying to determine if the baiting could be considered as complete, or would it be well advised to let it continue. And I think, you probably agree with me that the number of worms we've already pulled out of the material down low is quite a few. I haven't kept track, but I would say at least a dozen or so we've already pulled out of the material right below the bait box. And if I had been in here a little bit more diligently, because basically I've not been in here at all, not even once. The last time you guys saw this material, there wasn't even a bait box in it yet. That was just my to-do item, homework, after the relocation of the worms that gathered in the horizontal migration feeding zone. We focused more on getting the majority that turned out for the migration. The material has remained kind of moist and comfortable right here below the feeding zone. I'm wondering if it's still too early to have set aside the bait box. Yeah, let's just give ourselves 1 or 2 more moments of trying to pick out stragglers, and then guess what? We're going to reset. We're going to put this thing right back in after we dampen it a little bit. Maybe we'll even grab a little chow, a little extra food from the food that we intended for the main population to go into the new system that's resting right below here. But I think we'll just have a little fun here, extracting stragglers for a minute or two. Alright, I think it's unnecessary to go any further, because as you can imagine, we're going to continue on with the baiting. And for this, I'm going to place the system up flat on top of the new system below it, just so we can get a sort of level view into what's going on here. I just wanted to make sure that there's worms in it already, worms that have come for the moisture and probably appreciate the bedding. But it also does seem like if I'd been in here once or twice over the course of the past 12 days to aerate and check in on them, I would have gladly given them a little bit of moisture. But let's also treat this as another little minor feeding. I'm throwing a little bit of coffee in there, and now my spray bottle was just refilled and recharged, so I know I've got a great deal of pressure in this bottle right now. So the rate at which this moisture is being dispensed is very fast. So that's it. We've pretty much soaked that bait box, and quite conversely, we've pretty seriously created a wicked drawing of the material out and about around the bait box by blending in all that dry from the surface. So I've got a feeling next time we come in here to check on these little guys, who knows, maybe it'll only be the next time we come in to feed the new bin. I've got a feeling we're going to have a pretty good turnout. Maybe I should come back in preparation for the next visit, just to make sure that the bait box has been evacuated and that we can actually proceed to bringing the system to end. So let's get to feeding the new guys. Okay, now the system did get a first feeding when it was first deployed, when it was brand new. I placed some yummy foods down into the bedding for the wormies prior to the worms getting introduced. So we're going to find some various materials that most likely, if they don't look like they're only 12 days old, if they look like they're perhaps a little bit older, then there's stuff that came over with the worms from their old environment, or possibly a portion of what was built up to facilitate the baiting or the migration of the worms. Let's treat that, let's treat the horizontal migration as more of a migration, so as to not confuse it with the baiting activity going on in the bait box. So here's some pretty nice stuff, and guess what, we don't need this coffee filter either, because we have a replacement. So I'm thinking we're just going to sort of elevate the status of all this bedding type material that's just been serving the function of top coating here. We're gonna promote it, and we're gonna put that stuff right down into the feeding zone. And I've also got a variety of different napkins and some sort of packing paper came with something. But before we get to feeding them, I figured we'd just make sure everything looks happy and healthy all the way around. You know, and the system has still got pretty light colored materials that it's made up out of. It's a little bit difficult to see the worms sometimes because they do blend in with the colors later on when you've got a nice big tub of, you know, really dark colored worm castings and vermicompost. The worms do seem to stick out a little bit better and are easier to see. So I've seen worms in every handful, and the moisture level in every handful has been really nice. Here and there I felt like, for example, that last handful I just turned over had a little bit of dry material. So perhaps the top covering plastic that we were using didn't go all the way out to the edge, and that's fine. I don't even mind having a little bit of airflow like that. But it is very nice to see so many worms. So far 9 people have contributed, 9 viewers have commented on my last video where I kind of polled the viewers after seeing the worms get extracted from the horizontal migration feeding zone and then released into here. We had those couple chances to check them out, and I did what I always do. I polled the viewers to give me their estimate. Let me think. Let me hear what you think in terms of how many worms we're populating with here. So the 10 estimates, that's the 9 that the viewers provided as of the filming of this video here, the first check-in, plus mine, that's 10 estimates averaged together to come up with a number. And that number I think is still kind of in flux. So I'll usually wait a couple feedings before sharing that information after it seems like the dust has settled on the original release video. So I'm imagining a few additional viewers wanting to chime in with their guesstimates for how many worms live in here. But you know what I could do is, if you haven't seen that video yet, make it convenient for you. I'd really like to invite you to go over there and check out the video. I could leave the link up in the corner, and after you watch the video, drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. How many worms did we put in here? Don't put it in the comments of this video, because that'll just confuse me. Please actually open up the video that the worm release was shown in, using the link I pointed to in the corner. And I assume that link is there for everyone. I'm kind of the type of YouTuber that only watches it on the computer and never watch it on a mobile device. So whether I'm just pointing somewhere where nothing ever appears or whatever, I don't even know. So certain cardboard and paper items that I wanted to include are this toilet paper roll, and then I just shredded a whole bunch of toilet paper, and each roll that I ran through the shredder, I wanted to remove all the toilet paper that was still adhering to the tube. I wasn't sure if just toilet paper going in was gonna get stuck in the cutters or whatever, but I'm gonna start out by putting some of that in there. And then I got that white packing paper. I got a big luxurious napkin. I've got a number of different things, not to mention this really nicely seasoned material. And here and there, dressing up the feeding, we could come in with a little bit of my grit as well, which is just pulverized eggshell. I just grabbed a handful of what looks to me like lettuce, radish, grapes, cucumber peels, and perhaps even a few other random things. So this is almost like tissue, but a little bit thicker, I would say. That's the stuff that served as like a packing type material for some package. And this is going to be a nice feeding. And based on the early estimates there, again, I'm not going to reveal the averaged worm count estimate that we've been formulating. I'd still like to have a few people kick in their numbers, and then at the next video I'll feel like I've got a number that's probably got a good chance of not changing much, even if one or two more people chime in along the way later. I'd like to sort of do that soft announcement of the early numbers a little bit later than just the first check-in. So that is a nice feeding. A lot of good stuff in here. And at this point we're going to empty my transport container and give them the last of it. Man, oh man, look at that. I did bring this stuff down here a little while ago, and it was in my freezer, so it's had a chance to thaw now and get all mushy. I'm going to use just only half of that really big luxurious napkin because it is so huge, and I think we've already been really generous on the bedding in here. Although some of it is just reused bedding that was already allocated to the system in the form of all that cardboard, but at this point, oh, didn't we give them all the coffee? Silly me. But yeah, I think we're good. I'll use that little piece of napkin in my next feeding, whoever that might be. So we've got our feeding zone indicator. Did we give them grit? I don't remember. I reached for this thing. I probably did, but just in case, since my memory is so poor, can't remember what I did 2 minutes ago. We'll just throw a little bit in there just so I can feel like I'm giving them what they need. Although chances are we already probably sprinkled in a good bit. And we probably gave them some with the original foods that were placed in here for them prior to the worms being even added. So I'm usually pretty good about being pretty generous with the grit. So I would hope that there are no wormies wanting for any more. Alright everyone, that's it for the check-in with the newest system, the previously outdoor worms from Outdoor Worm Bag version 6.0. I'll tell you, I was almost about to launch off version 7 the other day, but I got called away. But I think it's imminent. One of these days soon, it's going to happen. And next time we check in, besides announcing the worm population, we'll also be probably, hopefully, emptying the bait box and doing a little family reunion. So that's it for the video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.